I was a college dropout. After graduating high school, I went right to college, not really having any idea what it was I wanted to do. I was uninterested and unsure, I was distracted, and after about changing my major once a month, I realized this isn't the place for me. During this time off, I decided to do some traveling, so I did a couple road trips cross country. I traveled to foreign countries, I moved to different places, and during this time I met a lot of interesting and intelligent people. They really helped to change my mindset and thinking and helped push me in a new path. This is where I became aware of gap years. Gap years, according to Forbes, is traditionally when a student takes a break between high school and college for self-discovery, learning to be independent, taking time to mature, and often to pursue a passion. But the student must also plan to matriculate in college or go back to school. So, what are some things about gap years? Gap years, they're promoted in a lot of foreign countries, including the United Kingdom, New Zealand, and Australia. So, I am here to argue that the United States should press gap years to their students more, make it a common thing, just as is done in other countries. So, throughout this examination, I will talk about the benefits of a gap year, refute the taboos surrounding them, and provide statistical data supporting the positive results of their participation. Here are some professional groups that provide gap year assistance. We got places like Knowles, Global Roots, Outward Bound, The Leap, and just there's plenty more where that came from. And here I have a testimonial from a student that participated in the gap year program. It says, I gave every category on this review a 10 because this trip was incredible. Although it was some time ago, it was one of the highlights of my entire adolescence. This was not only because of how much fun we had, but also because I was able to grow tremendously, and this was not only internal awakening from visiting a place with so many underprivileged people. This trip, followed by one to South Africa the following year, really played a major role in the development of my leadership and teamwork abilities. Thanks to our 3 leaders, there were never any safety issues, and everyone in our group had tons of support. So, as you can see, this person really enjoyed their gap year experience. Let's talk about some more benefits dealing with gap years. So, the Gap Year Association, which is an accredited program, you can find it online, lists a bunch of benefits that you can get from partaking in a gap year. These include travel and experience in other countries, personal growth and development, exploration of study and career options, learning another language, a break from traditional coursework so you don't burn out, volunteer opportunities, and the ability to gain work experience. Here I have just some data that prior students who participated in a gap year program collected. So 98% of people agreed that it helped them to develop as a person. 98% of people said it allowed time for personal reflection. 97% of people said it increased their maturity. And 96% of people said it increased their self-confidence. As you go down the list, the numbers get higher and higher. If we take a look at the lower end of the scale, 27 people said that it allowed them to place out a foreign language requirement in college. Not a very big deal. So now let's look at some disadvantages that pertain to gap years. Let's see, so the first one, if you partake in a gap year program, you'll never go back to school. Wrong. According to the Gap Year Association, they show that students who take a gap year experience are 90% likely to return to university within 1 year. In essence, that means that by taking a gap year, you're more likely to attend a university in general than the regular population. Next, students will not be able to afford a gap year. Wrong. There's 3 ways to combat this problem. First, students can get summer jobs or after-school jobs and save up for their trip alone, on their own. This will show personal responsibility and help them learn budgeting skills. Another option is scholarships and grants. Those programs I showed you earlier, Knowles, Outward Bound, all over the internet you can find scholarships and grants for students wanting to partake in a gap year experience. And the final option is to volunteer or work abroad. So if you volunteer abroad, you're not going to be spending money. You're going to be working there and living there for free. Now let's take a look at some statistics surrounding gap years. So according to the Gap Year Association, gap year interest and enrollment trends continue to grow. They don't know exactly how many U.S. students take a gap year each year, but amongst their sources, they're able to say that interest and enrollment is growing substantively. Next, students who have taken a gap year overwhelmingly report being satisfied with their jobs. Upon further inquiry, they found that this was related to a less selfish approach to working with people in careers because of the experiences they had in the foreign countries and the interactions they've had with the cultures. Next, many teenagers in other countries wait a year after high school before going to college. This is true in Norway, in Denmark, in Turkey, Australia, New Zealand, I mean the list goes on. And more than 50% of students take a year off before college. About 1/3 of college freshmen don't return to the same institution for a second year. Why? They were probably like me. They had no idea what they wanted to do. They didn't want to waste the money. And so if they had taken a gap year, that might have been a completely different scenario. Next, 88% of gap year graduates report that their gap year had significantly added to their employability. This is based on maybe they learned a foreign language, maybe they learned how different problem solving skills, they got a confidence boost. I mean, all these different experiences add up and make you more of an overall well-rounded, employable person. So in conclusion, there are obviously numerous benefits to participating in a gap year, both academically and personal. Despite certain taboos that surround gap year students, there are plenty of ways around these obstacles. Like I mentioned, you can apply for scholarships, you can volunteer, you can work abroad. And finally, there are boundless benefits to participating in the gap year, and they should be put more in a spotlight by high school counselors and teachers in general. Thank you very much.